Hi, welcome to Gen 80 Talks with Anaí and Hats.
Hats. The way you say it.
Hats. And today we're going to be talking about childhood woundings, attachment styles, circle of intimacy, and
Yeah. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome to Gen 80 Talks with myself, Hats, and my wonderful co-host, Anahi.
Hi, thank you. In this podcast, we're going to be tackling different topics that it has to do with life, success, failures, and everything in between. We're going to be talking about relationships, love, family, careers, etc., and all the challenges that we face in this life that we're living. So stay tuned, subscribe, and join the conversation.
Yeah, so sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, Mambo number 5.
Pa, 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 pa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Say my name, say my name.
You're acting kind of shady
No,
calling me baby.
That's not good.
Better any other day.
Say
I
my
will
name,
call,
say my
you'll
name.
say,
Okay, we went out of tune there.
I know you say that I'm assuming things. Sun's going down by the way you seem. Shouldn't be the reason that you act this way, because nobody's holding you back from me. Because I know how you should do when you see everything to me times 2. Why can't you just tell the truth? If somebody said it, tell me who.
Say my name, say my name.
So on episode number 3, we were discussing about relationships and boundaries and setting those boundaries. And when we face the labels that we have learned from our childhood and stuff like that. We talked a lot about validation too. That was quite present.
Yep, it was indeed.
And today what we wanted to talk about was going a little bit deeper. So basically we have discussed a lot of the ways in which our childhood prompts our adulthood relational world or relational style.
And behavior.
Exactly. And we talk about how our parents have coded a lot of who we are and how we show up in relationship, which is something that we will all struggle with or face. Not struggle with because maybe the code that you got wasn't so bad, but maybe it is. So it depends on where you're standing. And what we wanted to discuss today is going a little bit deeper into that world of, okay, so we had a childhood that wasn't perfect. And now as grown-ups, we have woundings and we have issues and we want to kind of like pass through them, right?
Yep.
And so I mentioned, why don't we talk a little bit about the circles of intimacy and how we create our attachment styles in relationships from our childhood and how do we move past them?
Definitely. And I think your upbringing definitely has an effect on how you perceive your personal relationships moving forward. Like you're seeking certain things.
Exactly.
And there are definitely triggers that you notice as you sort of move away from the nest and you start your own life. There are certain things that you appreciate and not appreciate. And there are certain things that trigger you
greatly.
A lot.
Yeah. So one of the things that happen when we are in romantic relationship is that we go back to that pretty much the same state of dependency that we had when we were children, right? When we were with our parents, with our primary caregiver, which in most cases tend to be our mother, but it's basically that source of love, right? So many of us revert to whatever relational mechanics we have built with our mother. Or with our, let's say, within our safe space of relationship. So there are 4 different attachment styles. We're just going to talk about 2 because one is unsecure attachment and we're not going to go there. And the other one is securely attached. So the people that are securely attached are basically the people that in relationship, they had it figured out. It's the people that show up in relationship fully, they feel love, they never get, they rarely get triggered. We all get triggered, but they rarely get triggered. They know how to work through it. And then we have, if you see that bell thingy, how do you call that?
Curve.
The curve. Yeah, but the curve thingy, you know what I mean? There's like for 20, 20, 60, right?
In the middle.
So in the 60% is the rest of us mortals. Who have dealt with different issues from our childhood that will place us in one of 2 positions. One is anxious ambivalent, and the other one is anxious avoidant. And this is basically because for love to exist in the way that we start to understand love as children, you need 2 elements, freedom and safety, right? And when I'm talking about love, I'm not talking about romantic love that brings me flowers. I'm talking about survival love, Okay, the basics love that we have as kids that allow us to keep being part of our tribe. Right?
Parental love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So safety means I'm not going anywhere. No matter where you go, no matter where I go, I'm here. My love is here.
I'll always be there for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then freedom is and
I'll always be there for you unconditionally.
yes.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do anything for me to love you.
Okay.
And then freedom is and you can go and explore the world. So basically this balance is go explore, be, grow, develop, discover, be yourself, whatever, because I'm here always. And I will be holding you wherever and whenever you go and when you come back, right? So it's this balance. What happened? Some of us grew up with a lot of safety. It was a love that was always present, but we didn't have a lot of freedom. So I couldn't just go.
So it's
I have to be
suffocating.
Yes, if you look in the park, you're gonna see the different parents, and you see the parents that are sitting down, and the kids are like wandering around, and the kids come back and go and come back, and that's a love that feels safe and free, right? Yeah. And then you have, on the other hand, the people that had a lot of freedom to explore, but they didn't have safety. It was a twinkle light love. It was a love that will show up if I did something good or bad. You know? So it's the good boy, good girl. Love is there when I eat all my dinner. Love is there when I help my brother. Love is there when I am a very good girl, when I'm nice.
It's conditional.
Yeah. Both of them are conditional. Because in the other one, the condition is love is always present, but you don't have freedom.
Yeah.
You don't have freedom to explore, to anything. So it's a love that is punitive. It's a love that is looking behind you and going, aha, 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 right? So it's a very negative love. And we grow up fearing that love because it's a love that suffocates me. So when we grow up, depending on which of these two we experience the most, we're going to follow in one of these. So if I had a lot of safety, but I didn't have a lot of freedom, I'm going to grow up to become an anxious avoidant. If, on the other hand, I had a lot of freedom, but I had a twinkle light love, I'm going to become an anxious ambivalent. So these are two.
These are two of the 4 attachment styles, right? No.
Yes, exactly. So the ones that are the ones that we're gonna be discussing right now. So just to recap, we have the
4 attachment styles for episode 4.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So basically, you have the ones that are non-secure attachment, which we're not gonna discuss because they're complex. Then we have the ones that are. Why are you moving so close to me now? Now you're too close. Then we have
I like you.
I like. Then we have the ones that are securely attached.
Maybe I want to get corona.
Then we have the ones that have fully secure attached that we're not going to talk about because they have everything sorted out and we hate them.
Yeah.
We don't hate them, but we do. And then we have the majority of the people in the bell thingy, in the curve, which is the 60% where we are either anxious ambivalent, which means that I got a lot of freedom growing up, but I didn't have enough safety. And then you have anxious avoidant, which means that I had a lot of safety, but I didn't have freedom. Now, why do they are called anxious? And anxious means fear, right? And when we talk about the brain development at the beginning, on the first few years of life, the child's brain is underdeveloped. And the area that is the most developed is the reptilian brain, which processes only 2 types of emotions, love and fear. And when we think about love there, we're thinking about survival, not cuddly love. And when we think about fear there, we're thinking about dying. So it's that anxiety of dying. It's the anxiety of I'm losing love, I'm losing love, I'm losing love, I'm losing love. So these are the 2 attachment styles that we are gonna fall in relationship. Now, you will have one attachment style that is gonna be like your default. You can navigate in and out of that depending on how you're triggered in a relationship. So for example, for me, I grew up with a lot of freedom, like a lot, because I was mostly raised by a single mom. So, and she trusted me a lot. Like she would say things like, I trust you, go for it, you can do it, I believe in you, blah, blah, blah. However, there was a lot of conditional. So her love, her attention, the attention and the love that I gained was from being a good girl, having good marks, studying hard, being kind, being sweet, being very easygoing and that. So I became I call it like a gold star junkie. I really wanted to please people, right? So my natural tendency is to be an anxious ambivalent. Having said that, in certain relationships, I have been an avoidant. I have swapped, I have completely detached and gone to the other side.
That's as you grew up.
No. I'm talking about now in my relationships right now as a grown up. Yes.
As a grown up, yeah.
Yes, as a grown up. So as a child, obviously, there's much less conscious. So as a child, you basically are going to play whatever is going to help you cope and survive and be part of your group of people, right? Now
You're going to react to whatever you have in order to get what you want.
Exactly. It's a coping mechanism, right? Yeah. Now that I'm a grown-up and now that I have this information, I could see myself, oh, look, and this is not just for romantic relationships. This is for any relationship that in the circle of intimacy, so in how close they are to you, you begin to get the closest. So the closest you are in the circle of intimacy, the more the trigger, the more your tendency is going to come out. So for example, if I am an anxious ambivalent, I need love to tell me that they love me. I need whomever that loves me to tell me that they love me, which is why I tend to do really nice things and I be a good girl. So I'm going to be the one that is going to bake the brownies for the bake sale. I'm going to be the one that is going to want to sort out everyone's problems all the time because I'm trying to buy love. And that's going to be my tendency. Now, this is all very subconscious. It's part of my work and it has been part of my work to say I am worthy regardless, even when I don't show up for everyone to do all the things. I'm still lovable and I'm still loved. So that has been my growth, right? But in most of my relationships, that's going to be the role that I'm going to take. The closer you get to me in my circle of intimacy, so the closer you are to my heart, the more I love you, the more trigger I'm going to get. So for an anxious ambivalent that is beginning to date and they really, really like a person and the person doesn't text back in a few hours, you begin to feel like, oh, they don't love me anymore. I feel that I'm dying. That disconnection makes me feel that I'm literally dying. My anxiety is going to kick in. For the avoidant, which is the other side of the coin, and the avoidant, again, had a lot of safety. Love was always present, but it was a love that suffocated me. It was a love that reminded me how much of a failure I was. It was a love that would be scrutinizing every single thing that I did wrong. So for them, love is dangerous. So what happened is that for the avoidant, the closer you get to me, the more you tell me that you love me. At the beginning, it feels good. And eventually, I'm going to start feeling like, oh, this is not going well. And I'm going to avoid that. So what happens in the relational world, that the ambivalence and the avoidance fall in love and start triggering the shit out of each other.
So we've had lots of discussions, and I've told you quite a lot of my past and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But in your opinion, what did you think I was? Do you remember?
Yes.
What was I?
So I always thought that you were an avoidant.
And what, say again?
Anxious avoidant. So that you grew up with a lot of safety. There was an always present love that was watching, but not a lot of freedom. So you were a judge and criticized a lot.
Yeah. So essentially growing up, I had to, I need to phrase this carefully because I don't want it to come across negatively, because I think I am the person I am today as a result of that. And, and again, whether I liked it or whether I didn't like it growing up, it's as a result of my upbringing is who I am today. But I had to fight a lot, and I had to do a lot of I'm going to do this and seek forgiveness later kind of thing, because I didn't have go and do what you want to do all the time. It was like, yeah, they allowed me to do it, but it was only after I had to sort of like ask a few times and say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And at some point it was like, okay, I've done it, I've done this, and...
Suck it.
yeah, kind of, yeah. But it's true. In a way, I kind of saw that as, oh, you don't love me because you're not letting me go and do X, or you don't love me because you're not letting me go and do Y. And I'm not going to do anything bad. I'm going to do something good. I'm going to go and play in a football tournament with my friends. And I was like, no football tournament. You should stay at home. I was like, okay, if I stay at home, what am I going to achieve? I prefer you being with me, okay? Or I prefer seeing you here because I worry about your safety, or I worry about this. That's all kinds of love that we might not necessarily connect with, and we might not necessarily agree with, but it's a type of love anyway, is that they're fearful and they really, really worry and care about you. Especially growing up in, let's say, you
are a third culture child.
Exactly.
From your parents have an Egyptian background, which means that they saw the UK as a whole different universe than what you saw.
Yeah.
They were not brought up there, so for them there was a lot of freedom that they did not want you to partake on.
Yeah,
and that makes sense.
Yeah,
a lot of A lot of us, children of mixed heritage, have that. And a lot of second generation or first and second generation children of immigrants have that, because your expectations are higher than your parents, because they busted their ass for you to have a better future.
Exactly. And again, I think you hit the nail on the head. And seeing that as a kid, you don't really see that, because you're born in for me, because I'm born in the UK, and I don't know any different. I'm in the system. I've gone to school there. I've grown up. Opportunities are presenting themselves to me, and I want to get involved. But there's always that voice of, oh, just be careful because, or maybe just be careful and no because, and you just have to kind of make sense of it. I remember a lot of the times I wanted to go on a trip away or something like that, and parents were like, no, and you just don't get it because all the other kids are just like going, you know. It's not easy, to be honest, and I think I was lucky in a way that I was the first child as well, don't forget. So I was the first child, I was the eldest child, so a lot of the experimenting, let's say, of what we will allow and what we won't allow was done on me.
Side note,
plus I'm a boy as well, but it's different.
Side note, that's what we do as parents. The first child is an experiment. Sorry, first children. I'm super sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
you're fucked
because you don't know you don't know any better, right?
Exactly,
so
and you're trying your best.
Trial and error. Yeah.
Nobody has a child and say, let's see how much I can fuck them over. Nobody does that. No. We're all trying our very best, but with the first one we learn, with the second one we learn a little bit more. Hopefully, by the time you get to the fifth one, you're like, oh, I get the hang of this. I have the hang of this. I can carry on. Yeah. Hopefully,
but no, I see what you mean, and I did have a lot of, if you want to do this, then you have to do that. If you want to do this, then you have to do that. So it was like,
which is also very, very westernized. Like, this is how we raise kids in the Western. Like,
is it?
It's very. That's. I mean, again, we're going back to the elf in the shelf.
I don't think
it is. No. It's we're looking at you, and
my parents weren't. They were from Egypt, so
but there's still an influence from this reward system. This, you do this, I give you that. It's a tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
And this tic-tac-toe is not always great, because basically what you're saying is like, for you to get what you want, you have to do what I want.
Yeah.
You know how that's called in a work environment, depending on what the things are? That could be called sexual harassment. That could be called crossing the line. For you to get a promotion, suck it, baby. Like, it's true. I mean, Monica Lewinsky, right? Like, this is how we start with these things.
I don't know where this conversation is going, by the way. It's,
what I'm saying is that it is not a great...
Are you comparing me to Monica Lewinsky?
No, I'm not. Okay. And I'm not your boss either. But when we teach children that we are the ones in control of their pleasure or in control of their rewards, that's what we're saying. Someone with more power is going to tell you if you are worthy of the...
This is going to sound a bit weird, right? But
oh my God, because we're not weird.
No, yeah, well, we are kind of weird. But look, you get a dog, okay? Right? Oh, okay. I'm not comparing kids to dogs, okay? But it's just...
Parents
example, right?
everywhere, I'm sorry.
No. There's no need to apologize. This is a serious question or example. Mm-hmm. If you get a dog and you don't train that dog and you just let the dog do whatever it wants to do, it's just going to run riot, right? But I remember we had neighbors who had a dog, and that dog, hold on, let me finish. That whenever we would go to their house for dinner or anything, I was petrified of dogs at the time. I was only growing up. I was petrified, and the dog looked like a wolf. And I remember that there was a certain space in the house that dog knew it wasn't allowed to go. So that was like the safe space. It literally was. It's hilarious. There was the edge of the carpet was like, if you're on that side of the carpet, the dog knows it's not allowed to go there. But it's because the dog was well trained and it knew that you don't do this, right? You're not listening to me.
I am listening to you, but you're going to come to the time that we have to train our children, and that's not it. Because a dog doesn't have a prefrontal cortex.
Okay, just bear with me. I'm not as versed on this kind of thing. But the point I'm trying to make is kids... as they're growing up, they have so many different things that affect them when they're growing up. They see things outside, they see things at school, then they see things at home.
Except in Corona time, where the school and the home are the same thing.
Yeah, but the majority of the time spent is at home, right?
Yeah.
And so whatever happens at home will
Actually, no. The majority of their wake time
School?
and learning societal, because when they're at home, they're not in a vacuum. They're at home, but they're watching TV. They're consuming information. The parents have less and less pull these days than they used to
Really?
have. Yeah, and it's not conditioning. We're not condition. You condition as you train a dog. You're not conditioning. You're training a child. You're giving them boundaries within which they have freedom to move. Like, I'm gonna tell you an example today.
I see.
I took my children to
Okay.
the swimming pool today. Like, we have a swimming pool. I didn't go anywhere else. I still respect Corona.
It's literally just outside.
It's just right here, right?
I mean, like literally outside.
So we went upstairs. They were taking a bath. They finished the bath. They bath together, like no problem. I'm taking them out, and Mikey, my 4-year-old, starts to poke Matthew in the ass with something. They were a leg up, I don't know. And Matthew said a couple of times, no. I mean, at first they were poke. They are wild and they tend to poke each other's stuff. As long as the poking is consensual, I'm like, whatever you are doing with your parts, please don't involve me, right?
This is so strange. But okay.
But then Mikey poked Matthew in the bum, and he's like, Matthew said, stop, first time. He did it again. Matthew said, stop, second time. He did it again. I pick him up. Like, I was like, no. Why? Because there was a non-consensual, there was a verbal non-consent. Stop. And when you say stop, it's stop. It's a stop in any situation. We stop. And I had to tell Matthew, who is 4, but we have been discussing this forever, personal space, bodily autonomy. If someone says no, you stop in that moment, regardless. Because today is a piece of Lego in his brother's ass. Tomorrow is going to be his penis in someone's holes. So you...
This is proper weird.
No. Because
I understand.
You create, as a parent, you create boundaries. You give them boundaries so that later on they can integrate and become a good citizen in the world, right? But you don't train them. You don't call them. You say, no, we don't do this. We do that. You ask for, like, even with me, sometimes he wants to sit on my lap and I'm like sweaty or hot and I'm like, no, bodily autonomy. Ask for consent. Ask me, mommy, can I sit with you? Which is actually, I sit on you? So a dog you train, good puppy, bad puppy. Here's your cookie puppy. A child you don't train.
I know what you mean.
A child you say.
It's different. I agree.
Exactly.
It's different. But
And going back to our main topic today, which is how these childhood codes create wounds that later on translate into our relationships, right? Okay, so like I said, I was raised by a single mom. My dad was present, but he also disappeared a lot because he struggled with bipolar disease. So he was in and out of my life a lot. So the love that he gave me was a love that abandoned me a lot. It was a twinkly love. It was a love that when he was there, when he was good, it was... I get emotional because he was like on me love. It was a cuddle love. It was a love. Like, wherever he will see me, regardless of my age, regardless of who was around, he will stop, hug me, like embrace me, kiss me, tell me that he loved me. That was on the good days, right? And then on the bad times, I didn't have a dad for years at some point. So it was a love that was there but wasn't there.
it was unstable.
It was completely unstable. Yeah. And it was a love that gave me a lot of freedom, but it never gave me safety. And with my mom couldn't be there all the time because she was busting her ass so that we could have food on the table and so we have a roof over our head, right? So it was a very, very free love. She always told me that she loved me. She always told me that she trusted me. I had the key to my house since I was like 6, and I would spend most of the afternoons on my own because we couldn't afford anything else, right? But it was, again, a love that was conditioned. Yeah. And I know that both of them did their best. But this is a reality. So I grew up to become an anxious ambivalent. Now, what does that mean? In the world, I have fallen in love mostly with anxious avoidance because that's what we do. Whatever level of wounding I had, I'm going to find someone who has the opposite and I'm going to fall the fuck out of love and I'm going to be like, oh, this is it. Because for the ambivalent, the coolness of the avoidant, the fact that they tend to be very detached, the fact that they tend to do their thing on their own, they don't seek help, it's hot AF. It's fascinating.
What's going on here?
Meanwhile, for the
What's going on here?
for the avoidant,
Cool. Yeah.
The colors and the fact that the ambivalent has expression and she or he feels wild and free to be and to say, it's fascinating. So for the avoidant, it's like, oh my God, look at all the range of emotions. Look at all the I love this. And for us, it's like, oh my God, look at how cool they are. That it's like they don't care. Oh my God, I love that, right? And then you have media that keeps making that like the normal thing to do.
Okay, I never thought of it that way. Okay, and
Well, that makes sense.
and I'll tell you why, because so in my previous relationship I struggled a lot, and whether that person knew it or not, I was really struggling trying to understand that person, because I was seeing a similar thing that I didn't like or appreciate growing up. Personally, is my personal opinion, that the way that I was brought up was quite harsh. I was always, I wouldn't say unhappy, but I was always like, that's a bit unfair. That's always harsh. Oh, why are you being like this with me? Why are you being like that with me? Why won't you let me do this? Why don't you let me do that? Why do I have to prove my love? Why do I have to prove myself to you for your love, sort of thing? And that.
And you fell in love with the same thing, 100%.
Well,
Because this is a.
No, I didn't. Well, okay, I need to be careful what I say. When you say I fell in love with the same thing,
You choose the same thing.
I didn't. No, I didn't. Well, I was used to it. It was what I was used to.
That's what I was going to.
Yeah.
What I was going to is that we repeat the same model with our partners because it feels comfortable.
Yeah.
If you were brought up in a house that was loud and you felt always connected to that, you're going to seek the same thing because your brain is trying to get you to survive, and the brain knows that sameness equals survival.
And I got to a point where I was like, actually, this is not what I want. I don't want to live my life like this. I don't want to always live my life having to please somebody or to do that.
Exactly.
Or to prove myself.
And that's your growth, right?
Yeah.
So the growth that we have is when we say, wait, I have been fucking with this wound since I was 2. Now I'm 32, 42, 52, 62, whatever age I am. Can I just stop fidgeting with the same wound? Because it's getting old fast. Yeah. And this is when we each, depending on where you are in your style, take ownership and be like for me as an avoidant, my growth in relationships and my growth that what was completely transformed the way I show up in the relational world is to say, okay, so my tendency is always going to be to seek love, to actively seek love and be very lovable and be very nice and cut parts of me, edit myself because I want you to tell me that I'm a good girl. Fuck it. In relationships, and I'm not talking about just romantic relationships, I'm talking about in general, I'm showing up. I'm showing up knowing that because you take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 3 hours, 5 days to answer a text from me, doesn't mean that you don't love me. And even if it does, I'm safe. I'm safe within myself because I love myself. So for the ambivalent, the growth is to hold yourself, not to need someone else to validate you by telling you that you're good, that they love you.
So I didn't come to that realization until I actually saw a psychologist. So I went to see someone as part of my, let's say,
journey.
Yeah, I wouldn't say healing process or journey. It was like as part. I was encouraged to speak out and speak to somebody in a safe place, which is what I did, and I thoroughly recommend it to anybody who just wants to talk to somebody who's impartial or independent.
Side note. Yeah. There are loads of online options right now. So if you are in lockdown, maybe you're not because this is 5 years from now. But if you are struggling with something, you don't have to see someone face to face. There are so many apps. There are so many people out there ready to support you. So seek help.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely talk to somebody because you don't want to go through the burden of having this on your mind by yourself. And I spoke to this lady and I spoke to her in the run up to my decision to end my marriage, and I spoke to her in the post that for many months. I was up to 6 months, and I really, she was really good at asking me questions to figure out where the root cause of my pain was, and it stemmed back to my upbringing.
Of course,
to my upbringing, and I was actually shocked that she led me down this path to figure out where the root cause was, and I had exactly the same issues in my personal life. And she said to me, she said, if you had this in your upbringing, you don't want this in your personal life. You want the opposite, right? And I was like, oh, this is like unbelievable. It's like, why did I not see this at the time I was going through it,
because we don't have those tools.
I didn't have that tools, and I was just like, okay, it's the easy option for me to be the one that always says sorry. I was always the one that kept the peace. I was always the one that brought the gifts to make that person happy, because that was the kind of person I was growing up, because I was seeking that love always at home. And
that makes you sound a little bit like an ambivalent, just so you know.
Okay, I'm a bit lost with that, but
it's okay.
But the point I'm trying to make is that, and again, I was doing all those things because I wanted to get I would not say attention, but I wanted to get the acknowledgement or the validation. And having done that growing up, and I don't get me wrong, I'm not anti the way I was brought up. I think, again,
your parents did your best.
Every parent does their best based on the circumstances that they're in. Okay, however, when you get married, you don't have to want to earn the love of somebody, unless maybe that's the kind of thing that you're into. But that's definitely what I was into.
Whatever float your boat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but and when she made that clear to me, and she said to me at one point, she said, "You are not that kind of person, and you may have the tools and skills to change the way you are to fit with that person, but at some point in time, you will have a breakdown." Because you're going to be somebody that you're not. And at that point in time, it's going to be too late. There'll be too many variables in that relationship. There may be kids involved, etc., etc.
But it's not just that. Forget about the kids and all that. It's like we eventually want to be happy. Like that's what we're doing all the work. So,
sure.
So the reason why both, regardless of your style, that I always recommend that we seek ways to grow and to understand it so that we can tackle it better is because ultimately, you want to feel comfortable within yourself. You want to feel at home with yourself. And you cannot do that when you're constantly thinking, will she or he love me?
Yeah,
am I lovable?
When you're tiptoeing.
It's not just tiptoeing. Yeah. It's that it's you're questioning yourself. You're questioning your worthiness. You're questioning your lovability.
Exactly.
You're constantly being like, no, wait. Like you send a text and then they're like, oh, they read it. They blue ticket, but they haven't responded. Oh, they don't love me anymore. And then you start to create all these stories because you're so triggered. You're so hyper aware of everything that you're so triggered. So you create this story where the other person doesn't love you and you're too needy. And every negative comment that anyone had ever told you starts to flush you and you're full of shame. Yeah. And then maybe the person 2 hours later is like, hey, babe, I'm sorry. I was driving and then I was stopped by the police or whatever happened, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, oh, everything is fine. Everything is fine, people. It's okay. It's okay. We're love. What the fuck roller coaster is that to live in, right? So you want to be in a place where you are like, in those moments of being triggered. And the moments of being triggered at some point are something as silly as a text, but at some points are a fight, at a real confrontation where you're both highly triggered and where as ambivalence, we feel like we're dying if the person leaves, and the avoidant feels that they're dying if the person stays. Because for the avoidant, so like I was saying, the growth for the ambivalent is to hold yourself, to know that you don't need the other person to validate you for you to be worthy. Yeah. For the avoidant, the growth is showing up in love. So in those moments where showing up feels really unsafe, it's to know that I am safe within this relationship and the other person loves me. So,
and if I do have that option, if I do have the opportunity, which I hope I will one day, to meet somebody and to start a journey with them or start a family with them, before I even go down that route, I'm going to want to make sure that I'm comfortable with that person and that person accepts me for who I am.
Yeah. And this is where honesty and self-awareness are so key. So one of the big issues that we have now, and we touched base about on dating and texting and all these mind games and stuff last week. But moving forward, right, when you start to create relationships, if you are not open and honest from the get-go, so this is who I am, this obviously, and there's an ongoing joke about too much honesty in my friends because they say that I can be too honest. But if you don't feel honest to be with this person and say, do you know that joke? I didn't like it. Or do you know that thing? Like I said with the kids, no means no. You know, or when you said this is how I feel, and hold your truth and hold their truth and start to have awareness of how you are creating stories about the other person and hold them to you and then be like, hey, when you say this thing, the story that I told myself was this. Is this how you meant it? Instead of trying to sweep everything under the carpet and be like, no, but he's perfect. No, she's perfect. No, we're not going to talk about that now. Because guess what? At the beginning of the relationship, you are fucking drug. Full of drugs that want you to procreate. That's how love starts. So if you cannot have those hard conversations when you're drunk and everything is fantastic, you're gonna struggle when the drugs wear off. And the drugs always wear off because we're not gonna be drugged forever and ever in relationships, right?
The honeymoon period.
Exactly. So basically, if through this honeymoon, when you are hyper connected, when you are full of oxytocin and all these lovey-bovey hormones, you cannot tell your, I don't know, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whatever, this is hard, this is important for me, and I need you to respect this. When will you? When you have a 5-year-old sleeping in your bed every night and you are cranky and annoyed? No. Yeah. So this is why it's so important that we have the self-awareness to know where our woundings are. Like for me, it has been unreal. The understanding of my attachment style, the understanding of where my attachment style came from, the roots of it, and then the knowing that I could hold myself through the pain and through the struggles and through anxiety without needing someone else to save me has been one of the most liberating things I have ever gained. And because of that, I'm a better mother too. Because then I don't demand my children to love me for me to feel like a good mom. I can be much more honest and authentic as a mom, as a coach, as a speaker, as an author, because it's not about me earning love and worthiness. It's about me showing up.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that I want to touch on before we move on. So, in terms of, let's say you're in a relationship, okay? Mm-hmm. I think one of the aims of this talk is to explain to people that there are different types of people around. People have different backgrounds and upbringings, and it affects them. So, hopefully, this will sort of encourage more understanding of the other person,
not the other person, yourself.
I
want you guys to know where the wounding comes, so you can start nursing it, so that you can be happy.
Yeah,
with or without a partner.
I have a question now.
Ask.
Can the two, and I guess I know the answer already, but I guess if you're two types of people and you're in a relationship, in a marriage or in a partnership. Can that be the cause of, let's say, issues in parenting? So one parent would want to parent their child in one way, and another parent would want to parent their child in another way. Of
course.
Yeah. And that can mess up the kids big time.
No, well, of course, yes. But the idea is that you guys are going to have a team discussion and you're going to figure the shit out so that you don't break the kid, right? So the reality is that just as I am different than my co-parent, I'm going to have different expectations, and I'm going to have different ways of seeing life and seeing childhood and seeing everything. So obviously, unless we have an open dialogue where we are like, okay, so this is how I want to raise the kids, this is what I believe in this is how I believe in that, there's going to be friction. And funny enough, the three aspects that tend to break couples are sex, money, kids. And kids bring sex and money together. So these three elements are the elements that people tend to quote when they're divorcing. Is not everybody gets divorced for the same, but these are the three like sore spots in relationships, especially in longer partnerships, right? So yeah, everything that is important and relevant, you have to discuss. You have to talk about whether you want to have kids or not, because also you're assuming that the person that you are dating might want to have kids. What if they don't? That just because you have an operating system doesn't mean that you have to use it, right? So when we enter the relational world and we have self-awareness and we know our woundings and we understand how do we get triggered, because that's the whole reason for this podcast is for you guys to have more tools, right? You show up authentically because you really know who you are. You show up honestly because you know that no matter what happened with the other person, you are lovable and you deserve belonging and connection. And you also show up unapologetically. This is who I am. I'm growing. I want to be better, but this is who I am right now, you know? So with this self-awareness, the two of you, or the three of you, depending on what floats your boat, polyamorous is very growing a lot right now. But like the two of you will discuss things. And obviously you're not going to discuss everything on the first day. You're not going to be like on the first day, so what do you think about the elf on the shelf? Should we get one? If we have kids, no. But as you are discovering each other, you begin to know, like after the third, like when you have been dating someone for a couple of weeks, maybe for a month, you have a good idea of a lot of their likes and dislikes if you are being honest and authentic. I mean, when you bring authenticity, honesty, and like this wanting to be a better person into a relationship from day one, by the first month, you are very clear of whether that has a potential or not.
Yeah.
The issue is that many times we show up in relationships wanting to please and wanting to be like. And so we're faking it. So I don't tell my partner that in reality I hate meat, or that I hate shrimps, or that I don't like books, or that I prefer...
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
Massively. There's no, in terms of pleasing, and it's all part of
It
the
is
whole...
wrong. No.
No. I mean, I'm not saying
We're
it should
going back
be...
to the validation drama.
No. When I say, obviously, acts of kindness and all that kind of stuff, and all that, it's like, it's not, you're not doing it to seek validation. It's just, it's a natural thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but you're not billing the person.
You're not what?
Billing the person at the end. You're not at the end of doing the nice
having
things.
an expectation back.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
You
cool.
show up openly, and you can do those kind of things.
Yeah.
And obviously, if that person takes it and appreciates it for what it is, then great. But if you're doing it because you want something back, or if you're doing it because you think if you don't do it, you're not going to get anything back, that's a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you don't want that.
And that's what we're going for, right? So basically, you know your style, you know your wounding, you understand yourself, and then you show up authentically, openly, with curiosity, and you wait for the other person to surprise you and to tell you their part of the story. And in that process, the beauty of it is that you each come to, like, imagine a bridge, right? So each of you come with a Ziploc bag with your heart, and you meet in the middle, and you're like, oh, wow, that's your world. Oh, wow. In your world, the flowers are purple and the trees are green. And in my world, the trees are green, the trees are purple, and the flowers are green, you know? And you begin to discover this. And if you do it like that, and if you're open to the growth and the pain and the discomfort that comes from the growth, you build something beautiful, right?
For sure.
And
there's an element of mutual respect and understanding.
Exactly. And safety. Again, safety and freedom. Yeah. Safety to say you're going to show up and I'm going to show up and we're both safe to be who we are. And freedom to say, and let's explore this together.
Now, here's a question. Okay.
And it's the last question before we have to wrap it up.
But I think a lot of people don't really realize the kind of person they are or have been conditioned to be until they get in the relationship. And then through that relationship, they get all these triggers. I think one of the questions I had was, some people do like, okay, I'm coming at it from a semi-traditional way of meeting somebody and getting married and something like that, and before having a long relationship, etc.
Okay, and traditional for the Muslim world.
For the Muslim world, yeah. So, okay. You get introduced to somebody, and the only way you're going to ever live with them is by
getting married,
etc. So, in this case, I've seen some things about sort of like premarital, sort of like sit downs with a psychologist or something like that to try and understand yourself better before you go into a relationship. So you can see during the process of getting to know that person whether that you're compatible or not. Do you reckon those are the kind of things that are a good thing? Do they exist? Are they?
They exist, and especially right now in the Islamic world, there has been a lot of growth to improve the quality of marriages, like the length and the quality of these relationships. If I'm honest, I don't think they're needed. I think that you can be, because we're talking about two different approaches to life, to in society. We're talking about individualistic societies versus collectivist society, the Muslim world and the Latino world and these type of older cultures tend to be much more collectivist. So it's the greater good versus the individual good, right? So I don't think that they're needed. I think that if you come from a tradition or from a culture that has a tendency to assign someone to you to help you find someone, then the moment that you meet them and you know that you are in it together and that the divorce is, for many, divorce is not an option or it's something that you want to avoid, then the growth will be to say, okay, so where are we standing? And I know many couples that were married traditionally and then they created their own beautiful love story and they fell in love with each other. It is possible. The only difference between someone who has an arranged marriage and someone who doesn't, most of the cases, is the chemicals. When you start dating, when you meet someone, when you see them and you start dating and stuff, there's a huge chemical reaction. However, you could still develop that from someone that your parents told you have to marry, you know? Yeah. So here is not about, I come from this culture and therefore I don't have to do it. The work is not about you having a better marriage or a better relationship. The work is for you to have a better life, for you to be so content within yourself that you come to your partner or to your children or to your family with an overflow of love. because you're full of yourself. The issue is when we are so depleted that we are expecting others to fill our gaps. And that's when we're fucked. And on that really grim note.
Yeah, we look at positives. I think.
No, there's a lot of positives.
I think just looking back, I've actually learned a bit today, and that's.
You're welcome. I'm gonna be billing you at the end of this.
I bring a lot of joy to your life.
It's true, you do.
So
and swimming. You're gonna bring a lot of swimming to my life.
I'm gonna coach you as well. But,
no, but the hope with this is self-awareness.
It's self-awareness, yeah. Mm-hmm. Understanding and getting yourself to just to think, really. It's just contemplate about who you are.
What do you need? Where do you need to be loved?
Yeah, and how to maybe go about it, really.
And embark on it with curiosity as a journey, right? The reality is that we don't know everything. I'm 34. I graduated from, I have been studying this theory for years now. I have gone through so much with it and through it, both with my clients and as a person myself, right? I go through it with my children. I go through it with my, even with my parents, It's something that I do face every single day. And still I'm learning. There are moments where I have to hold myself and be like, oh, no, we're not going there. The story that you're telling yourself is not real.
I get that as well. I mean, I have been married once. I've always wanted kids. I have people tell me, rightfully or wrongfully, that I'm great with kids and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes when I sit with myself and I think, I'm going to freak out when I have my own kid, because sometimes I think it's going to be such a hard job. I don't know if I'm going to do it right or wrong.
You are going to do it the end.
I'm going to end up doing it. Yeah, of course. I'm going to be a parent. But the point is, it kind of freaks me out sometimes. And
I am constantly freaked out. Today, my son told me that I'm not his favorite teacher in homeschooling. I am his only teacher in homeschooling.
I think he was trying to be a comedian there. It was actually quite funny. I saw it.
It was not funny.
I thought it was hilarious.
The funny thing was when I said that he was negative, and he's like, I'm not negative. I'm not a magnet.
And on that bombshell,
that was Top Gear 100%. That was Clarkson 100%. I can't believe Clarkson is in my podcast. Fuck this shit. No, but seriously, take the time, go deeper, ask questions. Like if you guys want to know more about how to figure out which of your styles is the one that you get triggered with, it's very simple. In a fight, who raises the voice? You or your partner? Answer that here, and I'll tell you which is your style. And with that, please, as always, like, subscribe, do all the magical things so that we can carry on doing this shit and entertaining you and singing, because there's going to be more singing, right, Hats?
Hopefully.
Yes.
Ba-dum-ba.
I don't know what that was. Stay tuned for more. We're going to be discussing more about relationships next time, so stick around, peoples.
Thanks, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.